Hi, guys. So we're going to talk about Mars for the next few minutes. This is Adam Steltzner, who is an engineering fellow at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California. You probably know him as the fellow who invented that crazy contraption that helped to land the Curiosity rover on Mars. So first of all, can you tell us, how do you beat that? What have you been doing since the landing?
Yeah, wow, great. Couple things. No one person ever invents anything. It's always a great team effort, and actually that's one of the beauties of engineering, is it's a collaborative art. And the ideas from many, many people combined to make these great things that look breakthrough and look crazy, but are fantastic, come out of the minds of many folks. So what I've been doing lately is working with a different group of great people, which is fantastic to me because I always love the interaction with new groups of bright talent. And we've been working on developing a system to sample the surface of Mars and containerize it very safely for potential return to Earth at a later date. So for our investigations to date on Mars, we have packed the science instruments into miniaturized form and taken a lot of effort to get them onto the surface of Mars. We think, or certainly the science community believes, that to answer the final questions of Mars, we'll probably have to do it backwards, which is go and package Mars and bring it back to Earth to use the science instruments and the various scientists on Earth to do the investigation. And I'm helping develop the first piece of that puzzle, which is the sampling system.
Okay, that's great. And what are the final questions of Mars?
Is it alive? Was it ever alive? Are we alone? Those are some of the questions that we're asking at Mars.
And why do we ask those questions in particular? It seems like, when it comes to space travel, space exploration, we could take so many sort of routes and justifications. We could, say we want to explore for exploration's sake. We want to, get a broader scientific understanding of the universe. Why do we focus on life itself?
Well, I think life is a very profound question, right? We see life all around us on Earth, but when we look out into the stars, we don't see it as obviously, certainly, or we don't really see it at all. And could we really be alone? Could all of this, all of our experiences, be a unique moment in a unique location in our universe? It's sort of a profound question. It has religious implications. It is something that we've considered since perhaps the dawn of our self-awareness. So we do explore for many reasons. I think we're actually driven by our own curiosity to explore. So I think exploration is a fundamental expression of our humanity. But the question that we tend to ponder more frequently than any other is, are we alone?
Right. And what if we find out that we're not?
Well, I kind of am already there, just on the math of the thing, right? Yeah. Just on the billions and billions, to quote good old Carl Sagan. I think for various people, it is I hope we're not alone. It would be, if we were alone, I would immediately freak out. Everybody stop doing everything, right? We might break it. We might be the only thing that the universe has got. It would be good for all of us to have a chance to acknowledge whether there's life in other places in the solar system, and to understand that life can evolve in other places. It may also help us understand our own evolution and some of the processes that support life here on Earth, which is very important to us.
Yeah. Well, and along those lines, what do you think of the idea of terraforming Mars, or other planets for that matter, of basically making a home on other planets in our own image in some sense?
Right, that's a great question. Folks ask that a lot. Space exploration, where's it going? Will we go to colonization? Lots of times when people talk about colonization, they talk about it because they're worried about what we're doing to this Earth. And so that's the colonization, the terraforming paradox for me. The skills, the engineering, the care, the discipline necessary to shape a planet for us are the same skills, engineering, and care needed for us to keep this planet good for us. So I don't think terraforming is a solution to our own lack of discipline or our own lack of care and understanding. Now, there are other risks to humans other than ourselves. We are by far the greatest risk. But you know, if you think very deep, long time horizons, you can imagine threats, the sun going out billions of years from now, black hole wandering into our solar system. There are astronomical threats to the human species, and we are concentrated in a single location. And so you could imagine in deep time us thinking about diversifying our real estate portfolio. But for right now, for solving the threats that we pose to ourselves, I think we should not consider that as a solution.
Okay, okay. Well, and when it comes to the actual work that you're doing with the sampling of Mars, I want to get back to that a little bit. How do you sort of, because you're essentially retraining yourself for a new mission, right? How do you go about that? How do you sort of go about the educational aspects of it, as well as the sort of social aspects?
Great question. I happen to love doing different things. So this is previously I was helping the team developing a landing system, and now we're talking about sampling system. Very different set of physics involved. It's not burning up in the atmosphere. It's drilling holes into rocks and preserving the science that's found within it. I love that. Mm-hmm. I love learning about new fields, learning about new areas of intellectual endeavor. And I do it sort of by reading, by talking to people, by talking to people smarter than myself, and by assembling a team of people who hopefully are smarter than me, and we learn together about this new field. I try to make the team environment full of play, because my daughter, I have kids, and I notice they learn through play, and I think actually you can choose to never stop learning through play. So that's how I try to do it. And it makes it a little bit more fun for me, and I think it makes it fun for the rest of the team.
That's awesome. So how does that manifest?
Not taking things of great gravity too seriously.
No pun intended. Yeah.
And enjoying each other. Wordplay. Trying different techniques of looking at a problem, trying to think about all of the opposites. You know, sometimes when we're in a development and team members want to bring an idea forward or a change to something that we're doing forward, I ask them to come with the 3 central reasons for the change and the 3 central arguments against the change to sort of help separate yourself from the ideas you're bringing forward so you can be warm and respectful to each other, but brutal on the ideas you're playing with by having that objective distance. So a whole bunch of different techniques we use to try and make it fun and make it fertile for innovation.
And how does that fit in with the overall sort of infrastructure of JPL and NASA as well? I mean, is there sort of a bureaucracy to be dealt with, or do you have a lot of freedom to problem solve?
There's lots of folks who work at NASA. There are many, there's 5,000 people who work at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. And doing something like building Curiosity and getting her safely to the surface of Mars required 3,000 of those folks at the laboratory and about 10,000 people spread over 37 states and the better part of a decade. So you cannot do all of that work in free association wordplay frolic. There's a time in the beginning where you're developing ideas, you're understanding what you're going to do, and that's when that open time exists, and that's when you want to use those tools that bring in ideas from all sorts of different directions. And then there's an implementation phase where you've got the thing you're doing and you've got to make it happen, and that becomes much more structured, much more regimented, and a little bit more hierarchical, and involves a lot more people and a fair number of dollars.
Yeah, a fair number, yeah. What about the public-facing side? I mean, I think to me one of the things that was so striking about the Curiosity landing was just how much of a spectacle it was in the best sense, and it reminded you how much all this advanced technology is so fundamentally human. And this was one of the first times that we've had such sort of intimate access to to you guys as engineers and to sort of that technology. So how do you kind of think about the social side, or do you not at all?
No, I do. You know, it's interesting. I worked on, we put a pair of rovers, twin rovers, Spirit and Opportunity, on the surface of Mars in 2004. And I worked a lot on that landing system. And in 2004, social media existed, but a little bit, but not really. And we were on the top news stories for CNN until, frankly, Britney Spears got out of a limousine wearing or not wearing something, and all of a sudden we fell off the list. In the era of nightly news, they tell you 5 things. If you're thing number 6 that happened that day, you didn't happen. Now, this era is very different. Social media, many different multiple parallel paths of information transmission mean that people can become interested and spread the word themselves. And I've noticed a huge difference with respect to Curiosity, her landing. Her landing system was even wackier looking, maybe. And she's big. By the way, the version downstairs, just in case everybody knows, is half scale. The real Curiosity, actually it might even be 3rd scale, I can't really quite tell. The real Curiosity's head sits slightly above the George Washington bust that sits down in the lobby down there, so you can go and you can look up at George Washington and get a sense of the real size of her. So she was huge, she was a little bit outlandish in the way we landed her.
Just a little bit, yeah.
But more importantly, I think there was a whole bunch of conduits, parallel conduits for information and contact with the engineers through social media, and I think that's made a huge difference.
That's great. And is that something that you think about on an ongoing basis of sort of how do we sort of, you know, portray this work as it's going on, as it's maybe not even in full existence yet, but how do we get the public excited about it?
So I don't. My strategy, which I hope is a good one, it's slightly dangerous, is to just be honest and available. Because I think that connecting with the public, who frankly are paying for these efforts, and giving them insight as to why we do it and what drives us and who we are who do these things is important and useful.
Right.
I think the idea that we engage the youth of this nation, which we do. I can tell you that I'm engaged all the time by young kids, young adults across the country who are motivated and turned on, frankly, by curiosity and exploration. I think it's one of the greatest services that we provide to the nation. And so I believe in it, and so I welcome opportunities to share.
Yeah. And do you think that's common throughout JPL, at least?
In general, I think there's a lot of folks who understand the value of it. I can tell you it's quite frightening to share yourself openly with people. And so to the degree that you can be less guarded varies from person to person. And I may be on the oversharing side of that spectrum.
Would you ever want to go to space yourself?
So the more I look at space and the more I am involved in building robots that virtually explore space for all of us, the more I think of how delightfully warm and loving this planet is. I've got a very nice garden in the backyard of my house. I've got 2 lovely daughters, and I'm very happy to stay right here.
That's wonderful. And I want to just circle back to, you call Curiosity she. Can you just explain why you do that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not the only one. We tend to do that at the lab, and it may be that sort of the tradition of ocean-going vessels, naval vessels, or it may be that we think of her in sort of a protective way.
Huh, interesting.
I certainly do. And by the way, Curiosity is a better name for a girl than a boy, don't you think? I do. So, yeah, however, some collection of that, we just organically, unintentionally, without organization, call her a she.
Interesting, very interesting. And I think the social media team was run by women, as far
Yes,
as I know. So,
actually
yeah,
it is. Mostly
yeah.
all women, that's true. Yeah.
Okay, so I think this is going to have to be our last question.
Okay.
What's next for space exploration after Mars 2020, after possibly
Great.
Mars itself?
Right. So there are other places to explore other than Mars. You know, there's the outer planets of, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, etc. Those places are quite interesting. They're harder to get to. They take a longer time to get there. And they have some interesting moons about Jupiter and Saturn. Europa, Enceladus, Titan. These are places that astrobiologists think might have the conditions that would allow life to exist today. May be great examples for us, great places for us to go search for signs of a living universe. And so I'm hopeful that we will be doing some work not only at Mars, I love Mars, been doing a lot of work on Mars, but also beyond Mars to the icy moons of the outer planets.
Wonderful, thank you. And I think we have one more question. Yep, from Mr. Steve Clemens here. Yep.
Yeah, hi folks. I'm Steve Clemens. I'm Washington editor-at-large at The Atlantic, and I've been obsessed with having you here.
Oh, wow.
I am so excited. And this is not a commercial for Siemens, but I'm thrilled. We were so obsessed, and when they brought Curiosity here and said they will do it, I've been obsessed in what's the pipeline like of younger Adam Steltzners out there? Is the country getting it right in doing that? I know Siemens has donated a few $1 billion of this software that you use to simulate the landings, and they've gone to places like Cincinnati or Cleveland, Ohio, and I was just in Worcester, Massachusetts. They're going to Richmond to look at these consortium and try to give young people an opportunity to play around with this fancy software that you used. And it made me think about, is the pipeline of young talent like you there, and what should we do to enhance it if it's not what it should be? And then we'll wrap it up, and then I get to interview the next guy on the next stage. That's why. So Megan, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Great question. I think for me, the key to making more people like me, well, actually, I do that. You know, no, not cloning, but my wife and I have a whole program based on that. But I'm sure my wife Trisha's loving that right now, oversharing, right? So I think the most important thing that we can give our young people is a thirst, a drive to search for that which is awesome, that which brings awe and wonderment to them. And whether they find that in the visual arts, in music, in politics, in literature, or in the sciences and engineering, I'm not very concerned, because our nation, filled with inspired young people who are driven to see what they can do, will be a great nation and will make the world a better place. So to the extent that our efforts exploring Mars, putting a rover named Curiosity as our Curiosity, help touch that in youth, it makes me very happy and very humbled to be part of it. So I look forward to any effort that we put forward to create awe and inspire our nation's youth.
Awesome. Thanks so much.